Welcome to Functional Philosophy, the show in which I, Charles II, explain and apply Ayn Rand's philosophy, Objectivism. If you'd like to ask me a question on Objectivism or its application, just go to charles2.com/contact. And my last name is spelled T as in tango, E as in echo, and W as in whiskey. I am a 15-year-old objectivist who is trying to understand Ayn Rand and her philosophy. However, I live in a religious household with parents who don't understand objectivism, and given that I believe objectivism is the solution to most of the world's problems, I want to spread it. How do you suggest I get people to accept objectivism who refuse to question and mostly abandon 2,000 years of tradition in ethics and philosophy? Well, I don't know whether it's possible to be a 15-year-old objectivist. Certainly there's an age cutoff. A baby couldn't be an objectivist. I don't know if 15 is old enough. At the very least, it would be unusual. So just make sure you understand the basic ideas well enough to accept them honestly. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible for you to understand them that well, but it would be unusual, and it is possibly impossible. That is not a contradiction. There's a difference between metaphysical and epistemic possibility. Now, it's unclear whether you're trying to convert your parents. You mention them, but don't say explicitly that that's what you're trying to do. I wouldn't try to do it, because it is unusual to persuade religious people to become non-religious. And also because your parents have control over you. If you're 15 for at least one more year, I think 16 is the youngest you can get away from your parents, at least 1 to probably 3 more years. So I wouldn't get in arguments with them about anything controversial. Also, by way of prefacing my answer, I want to make clear that spreading objectivism should not be your main priority or activity in life, unless you are a professional activist of some kind, and even then, it shouldn't be an end in itself. You should do it because you enjoy it, not because you're fighting for a better world as an end in itself, because a better world isn't an end in itself. Your life and your enjoyment of it is an end in itself. So it would be self-defeating to spend your life fighting for a better world to live in and never actually live in it. With that said, it is important to spread objectivist ideas. You want as many people to become objectivists or be influenced by objectivism as possible, because that makes the world better for you. So how do you go about doing this? Well, speak out whenever possible and appropriate. When you're having conversations with people about intellectual issues, bring your objectivist perspective to bear. Don't bring it up when it's inappropriate, because that will just turn people off, but it often is appropriate. So talk about it at those times. Aside from that, you can write letters to the editor or do all the things activists do, but for a normal person, in terms of just converting people you personally know, bring up the ideas where appropriate, and most importantly, live your life successfully as an objectivist. Apply these ideas to your real life. That will make people interested in you, because you will be successful and happy, and you will act in other ways which are unusual. Being happy and self-assured is unusual. If you are those things, people will be curious, and then you can tell them about your ideas and why you are that way. That's been my experience. You don't have to go around yelling about objectivism to everyone. Just do your thing, and it will come up. Your friend will mention a good movie, and you'll say, oh, well, I'll order it from Amazon. And he'll say, oh, well, why don't you just pirate it? And then you explain, well, I don't pirate because that's stealing, etc. And then this person will be intrigued. You mean you don't steal things? You don't pirate things off the internet just because you can get away with it? That's intriguing to people. So there will be plenty of opportunities to spread objectivism to people you know if you live a good life. You don't have to go knocking on people's doors and asking them if they've heard the good word. Is universalism, increasing suffrage privileges of citizens, aligned with objectivism. Objectivist ideas of free will and the individual's potential to reason might support this. This is problematic for me due to how I correlate creeping presence of the government in our daily lives and the spread universalist ideas. Well, I don't know what universalism means. That's like idealism or materialism. It has many different meanings depending on the context in which you're using it. So the only clue I have here is that you take increasing suffrage privileges of citizens to be an example of it. You should have given me a definition instead of an example, or in addition to an example. So all I can address here is the idea of expanding voting rights, because I don't know what you mean by universalism. So you take things like expanded voting rights to be a problem because you correlate them with the growth of government. Well, the growth of government correlates with a lot of things. It correlates with technological progress, with anything that's happened over the past few hundred years. So objecting to anything on those grounds is stupid. But now, is there any causal relationship, let's say, between giving women and black people the right to vote and increasing government control? Yes, there is a relationship, but not a necessary one. Since tribalism has been pushed on people, then obviously giving more groups the right to vote is going to result in them voting in tribal ways, which is going to mean the growth of government. But there's no reason that it has to be that way. There's no reason women or black people have to vote for bigger government. In fact, refusing them the right to vote will promote the very tribalism that has led them to act that way. Because you'll be saying, you are a group distinct from us. Even if you don't take that in tribal terms, you would still be saying, you people are subhuman, you are not capable of being rational, and therefore you should not have the right to vote. Which is false, and will therefore cause problems. Now, voting is a civil right, not a natural one. It's not universal in the way property is. Not everybody has a right to vote. Citizens of India, for instance, don't have a right to vote in American elections. And you could possibly find some rational basis to reserve the right to vote for certain citizens of the country in which the voting is taking place. I can't think of any good criteria for that. The idea of being a property holder, a landed property holder, used to be an idea, but land ownership doesn't have the same implications today that it used to have. In any case, you'd have to find some actual reason why the vote should be reserved only to specific people. And the idea that women are emotional or black people are irrational is not true and therefore not a valid reason to discriminate. And in any case, no matter how you discriminated regarding voting rights, one way or the other, I think the only rational voting system is one which provides a mandate. In other words, signals a broad base of support. You could not have a capitalist dictatorship. So you don't want a political system whose mechanisms don't transmit majority preference in some way. Not because the majority is always right, but because you can't force freedom on people. So you could tweak it so that you cut out people who were unlikely to preserve freedom, but if you found yourself getting to the point where you had some small cabal of trustees who would make all the decisions for everyone's benefit, then that wouldn't work. There would be a revolution or civil war, or the tension would come out somehow. So one way or another, no matter how you slice it, you are not getting freedom without persuading the majority of people that freedom is good. You can say you shouldn't have to persuade other people that freedom is good because they owe it to you to respect your rights, but you are rewriting reality. It is simply a metaphysical fact that people need to understand why freedom is good before they will respect your rights. So you can't say it shouldn't be that way. That's how it is. Ayn Rand has brilliantly demonstrated that choosing your sexual partner reveals just as much about one's philosophy as choosing business partners, and furthermore how everything is deeply connected. Later, in Atlas Shrugged, it said how those with ability are looked down upon, told to be ashamed of their ability and hide it. Can't this be similarly connected to physical beauty? It said that, mostly, women shouldn't dress too revealing. Isn't this a different form of ability being punished? For clarification, I believe beauty is just as much an ability as craftsmanship is. Well, most people certainly have a wide range of potential attractiveness, and maximizing that potential is an ability and does require effort, but I wouldn't say it's just as much an ability as craftsmanship is. People differ in potential for physical beauty far more than they differ in potential for being craftsmen. There are many fewer people who lack the potential to be great craftsmen than who lack the potential to be beautiful. Now, isn't the idea that women shouldn't dress too revealing a form of ability being punished? No. I assume by revealing your standards aren't Islamic. I assume you mean really short skirts and really low-cut tops. No, the idea that women shouldn't dress like sluts is not a form of hatred of the good for being the good. It's a form of reverence and propriety. If you show the most intimate parts of yourself to everyone, that's egalitarian. That degrades the sexual relationship, because now you have that kind of relationship with everybody. Now, the religious hatred of physical beauty is a hatred of existence because it represents this physical world, and this world is low and degraded, and the world that really matters is the Platonic world, heaven, the non-physical world. But that doesn't mean you should just open yourself up for everyone to see. You cover yourself up not because you hate physical beauty, but because it's so important. And you can note that it's not that religious people think that you should be modest because sex is so important, like I'm saying. No, they think ideally you should take a vow of celibacy. The most moral thing to do is not have anything to do with sex or physical beauty. So if you're superficial, you lump that all together, but those could not be more different. One is not being revealing because you think sex is so important. One is not being revealing because you hate sex. Now, I should point out how this applies to art. I am not saying that you shouldn't have nudity in art. Art is different from real life. It's a selection of those aspects of existence that the artist deems important. So having a nude statue is completely different from going to Walmart nude. Now, if you had a naked statue on every block, maybe that would be too frequent, but without contemplating scenarios such as that, nudity in art is a different thing from everyday nudity because art is different from the quotidian. If you'd like to keep up with everything I do, just go to charles2.com. If you'd like to enable me to do more, just go to patreon.com/charles2 and become a supporter. Thanks for listening.